Quick, what was your third grade teacher's name? You know it. You're absolutely sure you know it. It's right there, hovering in your mind like a word floating just out of reach. You can almost see it. You can feel it forming, but it just won't come out. That maddening sensation has a name. Researchers call it a tip of the tongue state, and every single human being on the planet experiences it. But here's what most people never think about. What is actually happening inside your brain during that excruciating moment? And more importantly, how do you get the word unstuck? To understand what goes wrong, you first need to understand what normally goes right. Most of the time, your brain performs an absolutely miraculous act, one you never even notice. It seamlessly reaches into a vast mental library of thousands upon thousands of words, pulls out exactly the one you need, pairs its meaning with its sounds, and strings it into a complete sentence. All of this happens in a fraction of a second, effortlessly, automatically. Think about that. Every time you speak, your brain is running a search through tens of thousands of stored words, selecting the perfect match, assembling its pronunciation, and delivering it to your mouth, all before you've even finished your thought. It's one of the most complex cognitive processes humans perform, and 99% of the time, it works flawlessly. But then, there's that other 1%. In a tip-of-the-tongue moment, this retrieval process derails. You get the sensation of remembering the word. You know it exists. You know you've used it before. You might even know what letter it starts with. But you simply cannot recall it. The word is there, but it's locked behind a door you can't open. And when researchers looked at what's happening in the brain during these moments, they found something fascinating. On top of the usual brain activity associated with word retrieval, additional brain regions light up, regions that don't normally activate when you successfully find a word. One of the most important is the anterior cingulate cortex, a region responsible for conflict detection. This is the part of your brain that generates that urgently frustrating feeling, that gnawing sense that something is wrong, that the answer should be here but isn't. Now, here's what scientists are still debating. Is the target word actually being detected by your brain but just not successfully recalled? Or is your brain simply using associations and context clues to infer that it has the word stored somewhere? The reality could be some combination of both hypotheses. But what's clear is that your brain knows it knows. It just can't deliver. The tip-of-the-tongue experience actually lines up perfectly with how psycholinguistic theorists believe we mentally organize language. Here's how it works. When your brain stores a word, it doesn't store it as one single unit. It stores it in layers. The first layer is the word's meaning, what it represents, what it connects to, what category it belongs to. The second layer is its associations, related concepts, memories, experiences tied to that word. And the third and final layer? The word's sound, how it's actually pronounced, the specific sequence of syllables and phonemes that make up its acoustic identity. And here's the critical insight. Some researchers believe that this last layer, sound, is the most vulnerable to glitches. It's the final step in the retrieval chain, and it's the one most likely to fail. Your brain successfully retrieves the meaning. It retrieves the associations. But when it reaches for the sound, the actual pronunciation, the connection breaks. That's the tip of the tongue. You have the concept, you just can't hear the word. So what makes some words more likely to get stuck than others? It turns out a lot of factors influence how often you enter a tip-of-the-tongue state, from the kinds of words involved to your personal experiences and environment. For example, tip-of-the-tongue states occur most frequently with 3 types of words. First, proper nouns, names of people, places, and specific things. These are the #1 culprits. Second, infrequently used words. The less you say a word, the harder it is to retrieve. And third, words that are more abstract and less visual. Words like idiosyncrasy or revelation, concepts you can't easily picture in your mind, are much more likely to get stuck on the tip of your tongue than concrete visual words. And here's an interesting cognitive wrinkle. When it comes to people, recognizing a face and associating it with general information, like someone's profession, is usually easy. But remembering their name? That's where the system breaks down. Names are uniquely difficult for your brain to retrieve because they're essentially arbitrary labels. They don't carry inherent meaning the way other words do. And it gets even more complicated. Sometimes the reason you can't recall a word isn't that the word is missing, it's that the wrong word keeps showing up instead. Like if you're trying to remember the star of The Wizard of Oz, and you keep getting stuck on Dorothy instead of Judy Garland. The character name keeps intruding, blocking the path to the actress's name. Researchers call these blockers, unintended words that act like distracting red herrings in your retrieval pathway. They lodge themselves in the space where the correct word should be, and the harder you try to push past them, the more stubbornly they stick. And here's another factor most people don't consider: stress. One study found that stressful test conditions made participants report significantly more tip-of-the-tongue experiences. The pressure of the situation didn't just make them nervous, it actively disrupted their word retrieval process. So the next time you blank on someone's name at a party, it might not be your memory failing. It might be the stress of the social situation literally blocking the word. Now, here's a twist you probably didn't expect. Some people are more prone to tip-of-the-tongue moments than others. And one of the biggest factors? Speaking multiple languages. People who are bilingual or multilingual tend to experience more tip-of-the-tongue states, possibly because they have more than one word to describe the same thing. A word in one language can become an interfering blocker for the target word in another language. This seems to be especially true when someone is actively switching between languages. But it also depends on fluency. One study found that people who learned their second language before age 5 had fewer tip-of-the-tongue stumbles than those who learned later in life. And here's something even stranger. In one experiment, just hearing a language that participants didn't even speak was enough to increase their tip-of-the-tongue incidence. Simply being exposed to unfamiliar language sounds disrupted their retrieval process. Tip-of-the-tongue moments also tend to increase with age. This might be because of cognitive decline in speech-related brain areas, or because older brains have a vastly larger accumulation of knowledge to search through, or, most likely, a combination of both. Now, here's the part that might change how you feel about this whole experience. While tip-of-the-tongue states feel like your brain is failing you, they might actually be doing something incredibly useful. Here's why. Words don't usually go past the point of no return and get permanently forgotten. They don't disappear from your brain. They just become tougher to access. The word is still there, stored somewhere deep in your neural networks. It's just temporarily out of reach. And that tough-to-shake, maddening feeling of, "I almost have it, it's right there," that sensation of impending success just around the corner, it might actually serve a positive function. Researchers believe that frustrating tip-of-the-tongue feeling motivates you to keep searching. It drives you to invest more time and effort into retrieving the word. And studies have confirmed this. Participants experiencing tip-of-the-tongue states spent significantly more time and effort searching for answers than those who simply didn't know the word. Your brain isn't failing. It's pushing you to try harder. So, how do you actually get a word off the tip of your tongue? One proven method is called cueing. Instead of straining harder and harder to force the word out, lean into the clues your brain is already surfacing. Follow the breadcrumbs. What associated memories come up? What letters feel right? What category does the word belong to? For example, let's say you're trying to remember the name of the ancient city with the legendary hanging gardens. You might recall that it's one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. You might run through the alphabet. A, B, and suddenly the letter B stands out. And just like that, Babylon. Your brain wasn't babbling randomly. It was trying to jog its own extensive memory. Those fragments and associations it kept surfacing, they were breadcrumbs leading you home. And somewhere in that vast library inside your skull, your third grade teacher's name is stored. You do know it. Your brain just needs the right cue to unlock it. If this sparked your curiosity, hit subscribe and tap that bell, because every Sunday and Friday, MindSpark Explained answers another question you didn't know you needed answered. I'll see you in the next one, if I can remember what it's called.